personal time is probably one of the most controversial things in a relationship. Today, I'm going to help unpack how you can have your personal time and build a meaningful relationship with your spouse. Stay tuned. So, welcome back to the Marriage Success Series. We are finally in part 4, and this is going to be kind of a subcategory to what we talked about in part 3 of the importance of spending time with your spouse. Today, we're going to be talking about the importance of you having your own personal time. Before we dig too deep into today's episode, I want to make you aware of marriagedrills.com, where you can go and sign up for one-on-one coaching if that's something you're interested in. Just go check the description box below or the show notes, and you'll find a link to marriagedrills.com where you can sign up for that. Also, on the website, you can suggest a topic for the podcast if that's something that you would like to do. And you can also catch up on some drills that are there. And then last but not least, if you find value in this content, please rate, subscribe, comment, and share with a friend. If you're on a platform that allows for reviews, please give this podcast a review. It just helps get this into the ears or the eyes of someone who may really find great value in it, just like you are. Let's go ahead and dive into today's content. So the first thing is, why is personal time even important? And personal time, man, let me just tell you that it is so important to the relationship for a few different reasons. And, you know, some of the notes that I jotted down here, one is it recharges your batteries. And the second reason that I jotted down is it gives you some space to grow and to focus on something that you're interested in. So let's back up to the recharging of the batteries. It should not come as a surprise that whatever we do in life, it takes a certain amount of energy. And when you do things without replenishing that energy, you start to run on E. I think we all understand that if you turn on your cell phone and you watch YouTube all day on your cell phone, the battery is going to die. Well, the same thing happens in our relationships. When we are spending all of our time, not to say that it's not important to spend time with our spouse, and very few people are actually spending, all the time with their spouse. But when we're constantly doing things with our spouse, we really turn into some angry people, right? And that's because we're spending a lot of our energy without replenishing our energy. Now, that's not to say that our spouse can't replenish our energy or our battery or reset our battery, because that's absolutely possible. But other things in our lives may get in the way. And this is why it's important to have personal time to replenish your batteries. Now, we'll talk about some of the things that you can do a little bit later, but I want to establish the need for personal time and not make it such of a selfish thing. Right now, I think there's a lot of people who can relate. During the coronavirus pandemic, there were a lot of people at home with their family, and they were really getting on each other's nerves, if we're being honest, right? And that's all stemming from the fact that we can't spend all of our time with one another, and we wear each other's nerves down. In a marriage, it is the exact same construct, right? We can wear the nerves of our spouse down. Now, some wear faster than others. And this is where a healthy balance in the relationship really does come in. But if you don't have personal time, it is likely that you are going to wear down the balance of your relationship a lot sooner than if you did have personal time, which is why it's important to map that out for yourself. Now, the second piece was it gives you space to grow. It's important to be able to grow. The growth mindset in every relationship is only going to take you to the next level. It's only going to develop both you and your spouse that much more as husband and wife for one another. Now, when you have personal time and you get to focus on the things that you're interested in, it's almost an outlet, right? Again, when we get into the suggestions, we'll unpack this a little bit further. But if you are training for a marathon or a half marathon, and this is something that's really important to you, your spouse may not fully appreciate or understand it, but you fully appreciate and understand it. You know that it's going to take time to train for this event. Your personal time could be working out for this event, preparing for this event, and looking at your stats. If you're, I'm a Garmin user, as you can see here, if you're watching this at least. I'm a Garmin user, and I look at my Garmin Connect app a lot just to see where I'm at from weeks past, right? As I'm working out, running, lifting weights, whatever it is that I'm doing, I want to see my progression. Well, that's my interest, not my wife's interest. But I see my own growth, and when I see that growth, it inspires me to grow in other areas, which is where you sitting here taking the time to grow in your marriage is probably in the same context of what I was just talking about with the growth and having the space to grow. Maybe your personal time is just being able to hang out and watch these videos or these listen to these podcasts, whatever it may be. But nonetheless, growing and having something of your own personal interest brings value to your relationship, and it really brings value to yourself. So that's the reason why it is important to have this time, right? We want to be able to recharge our batteries, and we also want to be able to give some space for ourselves to grow. If you are constantly doing things for your wife or for your kids or for your family, and you don't have any personal time for yourself, you're going to tire yourself out, all right? Now, I get it. There are seasons in life where maybe you won't be able to get as much personal time as you did in other seasons. That is fully understandable. But to cut it out completely and to pretend as if you just can't have personal time, I think that's a false mindset or a bad mindset to get into. And you should absolutely have some, because it's not selfish to have personal time. So then that begs to answer the question, well, how long should personal time be in order to grow a relationship and to really just build one another up? Well, I will recommend that you have 1 to 2 hours per day where you have dedicated personal time for yourself. Now, if that sounds like way too much, let's put it into perspective. If you sleep for 8 hours out of the night, then that means you're awake for 16 hours out of the day. You work for 8 hours, give or take, and we'll put an hour of commute time. So now you have 9 hours, right? So that leaves you with a total of 7 hours where you can invest in your wife, in your children, and in yourself. All right. Now, if you're working multiple jobs and you're getting limited amounts of sleep, you're going to have to figure out what works best for you. Maybe it'll be a weekly thing where you have some personal time, because I get it. If you got to make ends meet, then that's what you got to do. But what I'm hoping that you are grasping from this content is you need to have some time for yourself. Whatever that is, I'm recommending 1 to 2 hours daily. I wouldn't go more than 2 hours, because then you start to fall into that trap. Like if you go 3 hours, well, you're only giving your family 5, right? And if you go 4 hours, because now you just have that time, now you're really only giving your family 4. So the reason why I'm saying 1 to 2 is I think that that's the sweet spot that won't cause too many issues or challenges. That's the only reason why I say it that way. Now, this time needs to be agreed upon between you and your wife, right? Or the wife and the husband. It just has to be agreed upon. If you are making up whatever time and it's not agreed upon, you are setting yourself up for a huge conflict, because you're going to be accused of not caring or not wanting to spend time, like we've already talked. So just like how you should protect the time for your couple's time, you should also protect your personal time. All right. And I won't offer up to you if personal time or couple's time is more important. I think you're going to have to fill that out in your relationship and in the season of life that you're in. If there is a level of you sacrificing your personal time to spend time with your wife to build your relationship, then that's absolutely going to be more important than you developing yourself on your own in personal time, especially if it's something that your marriage really needs. But if you are spending a lot of personal time and not giving your wife the independent time or the couple's time that you need, then you're probably missing the mark. And if you aren't doing either one, then I would highly recommend you guys start with the couple's time and then figure out your personal time in between there. All right. Now, once you put it onto the calendar, you have to adhere to it. I know that not everyone likes to live by a calendar. All right. I get it. There's some things that you can put on your calendar because you have obligations, right? Think of this as an obligation to yourself in the way of, I'm going to take some personal time so that I can show up and be better, be energized and charged for my family at the time that they're going to need me the most. So don't shy away from personal time. Don't make it overly long. All right. I think guys will have a harder time with this. There are some females that will have a hard time with making personal time for themselves not such a priority, or I'm sorry, not getting carried away with personal time. I think guys, we tend to, one, over or underestimate how long something is going to take, and we end up going over time. And, this doesn't have to be a perfect 1 hour or 2 hours. It could be 50 minutes. It could be 30 minutes, right? This is that's where you have to really tailor this to your marriage and to your actual season of life. All right. Now, this is the fun part. What should you do in your personal time? I'm going to offer it up to you in two categories for real. There's the growth category, which I think you should spend a portion of your personal time in the growth category. And then there's the relaxing category. I think you should spend a portion of your time in that category as well. Now, in the growth category, this is where those workouts come in, reading a book, creative projects, if you will. Like me creating this podcast and working on this podcast, this is in my personal time. All right. And I also work out and I have personal time for that. Now, I'll explain how you can have more personal time, because I have a lot of it, and I'll explain that here in a second. Now, some of the relaxing things that you can do is watch a TV show or a movie. And I think that's pretty self-explanatory. You just can't binge watch stuff, right? Or if you do binge watch, make it like an event. Put it on the calendar and say, hey, on Saturday, I really want 4 hours of time where I can binge watch this show. Again, agreed upon time. I know it sounds like I'm saying ask for permission, and kind of I am. But at the same time, I'm really trying to articulate that it needs to be communicated that you need this time. And you should be able to go to your husband or to your wife and explain, like, hey, I'm going through this right now. I really need some time so I can do this. And if your husband comes to you and says that, or if your wife comes to you and says that, then hear what they're saying and be the loving spouse and say, you know what, I'm going to give you that time. All right. Now, if you are the husband or the spouse that's going and saying, I need this time, don't make it a regular routine to ask for like this maximum or really large, drawn out time for your own personal interests. All right. Because then that's where we start to dive into the I'm being selfish lane. All right. But maybe once a month you can say, hey, I don't want to get out of bed. I just want to lay in bed. Right. That's relaxing. That's important. Something else that you can do during the relaxing period, play a video game. All right. I won't get into that. I think that's self-explanatory. You can also have meditation time. And meditation is extremely, extremely relaxing. It can go with both, actually, with the growth capability and with the relaxing capability. There's something about meditation that's just calming and it recharges. I personally meditate on God's word, on scripture. But if you are just taking time to really free your mind of all distractions and just sit in silence, you know, for me, I sit and I pray that in my meditation time. That is extremely relaxing for me. But moral of the story, you should spend some time in doing personal growth activities, and then some other time in doing relaxing activities. All right. You may not be able to do both on one personal time window. So on Monday, maybe it's workout time. On Tuesday, maybe it's relax time, and then vice versa. I don't know. Or 1 hour of one, 1 hour of the other. And these hours don't have to be in conjunction with each other, right? You could do maybe 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there, 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there, whatever you choose, right? Like, again, tailor it to your relationship, tailor it to your marriage. And I won't continue driving that point home because I think it's pretty straightforward. And then try your best not to do work-related things. The goal here is to make sure you are taking time to recharge. And I don't know about you, but work does not recharge my battery. Work drains me, right? Even sometimes working on content can be a little overexerting and it could drain me. So focus on doing something that is not work, but something that just re-energizes you and really gives you a better perspective on how you can become a better husband, a better father, and a better man. Now, again, personal time may not be available every single week. If you can get it every week, that's great. And if you can't, that's okay too. All right. Get it where you can and where it makes sense for your relationship. I can't stress that enough. Make sure that it makes sense for your relationship. You'll also need to weigh this with your kids' activities and make sure that, you know, you're not stepping on activities that you've already obligated the time to. So, like, if you said, hey, I'm going to take you to soccer practice, well, you're going to have to take your kid to soccer practice, right? We want to be a man of our word. So if we tell our kids or our wives that we're going to do something, then we should. And ladies, if you are going to say that you're going to do something, you should be a woman of your word and do what it is that you say you're going to do. All right. But don't let the kids' activities overpower your calendar to the point that you don't have personal time. That seems to happen a lot, where we're like, hey, I need to do all these things for my kids or with my kids, and then it's like, I have no time for myself, and you're so exhausted, and then you don't really make time for your own relationship with your spouse, and it really wears on you. So my recommendation here is, don't let the kids pile stuff onto the calendar. It is okay to tell kids no. I tell my kids no, and they move on, and they're still doing perfectly fine. Now, they also get to do a lot of the things that they ask for, but no is okay, because as soon as you say yes to something, you say no to everything else. As long as you say no, you start to protect your calendar. And this is why, working or living off of a calendar is pretty convenient, because you can look at it and see, like, can I do this? And I like to keep at least 3 hours of white space on my calendar every day. Out of my 16 hours that I'm awake, I like to keep 3 of those hours as white space. It's not always consecutive hours, right? Sometimes I may have 1 hour and then a 2-hour block, or an hour and a half and an hour and a half, or 30 minutes. I always keep some white space on my calendar if I'm getting full for the day. All right, so something for you to look into and think about managing. If you got questions on that, then send me an email, and I'll be more than happy to break that down and unpack it a little bit more. The next thing, protect this time in the same fashion that you would protect your couple's time. I already touched on this, but you got to protect this time just like you would your couple's time, because this is just as important as your couple's time. Now, I know earlier I said that if you had to choose between the two, you should go with the couple's time. And I only give that suggestion and make that recommendation because the whole purpose of being in marriage is to come together, right? It's not that it's more important. They're really almost equivalent, right? Because if your battery is drained and you're forcing yourself to come together, how well are you guys going to communicate? How well are you guys going to build a marriage or a relationship, or just build an experience? It's probably not going to be the greatest. So that's the reason why I say you should probably spend time with your wife, but it's important to have that personal time for yourself. And then you may need to wake up earlier or go to bed later. Now, this is something that I just have to give you, right? All of what I'm offering up to you is based off of an 8-hour sleep schedule, all right? If you sleep for 8 hours, then you're awake for 16, because there's 24 hours in a day. Whatever your bedtime is and whatever your wake up time is, you get to decide that, obviously based around whatever your priorities are in the day. If you have a 9-to-5 job where you got to be to work at 7, well, instead of going to bed and waking up at 6:30 just so you can get out of bed, get dressed, and hop in the car and go to work, maybe wake up an hour or two before you have to be to work. Get some personal time there. That's where I get a lot of my personal time, is in the morning. And most of the time, when I get my personal time in the morning, I don't need to take any time in the evening. Sometimes I get extra time in the evening, and then that's where I can work on extra things, content or other creative endeavors, whatever it may be. Watch a TV show, watch a movie, just chill out. So don't spend all of your time in bed and plan to wake up early or go to bed later. Get your 16 hours in and set yourself up with an 8-hour sleep schedule. I mean, I'm not telling you how to live your life, right? I'm just giving you ways in which you can find time for yourself so you can grow and relax. That is extremely important when it comes to building a relationship, building a marriage, and developing yourself. So hopefully that content was helpful. If it was, please rate, comment, subscribe, smash the like button. whatever interactive thing that can happen on the platform you are watching or listening to this on, please interact so we can get this out there into the hands of others. If you know someone who is struggling in their marriage and you think that this series would be beneficial, share it with them. All right? Now, until next time, I want you guys to find a way to love your spouse every day. Peace.